Good morning, everybody. I just wanted to do a quick video this morning for you about dealing with insurance claims. It's obviously been a very tricky time for a lot of people out there. Some good friends of mine and clients have had an incredibly difficult time with, um, horrific situations. A friend of mine, Mark Watson, out at Muriwai, was explaining to me that it was pretty surreal for his young children wading through what used to be a rugby field at 2 a.m. out at Muriwai, when the last flood happened. And my heart goes out to him and his family and other people in similar situations. Now they'll be in the incredibly anxiety inducing process of an insurance claim or multiple insurance claims, dare I say. That's not fun. And the reason that's not fun is there's often a lack of information or reassurance, particularly from some of the bigger companies, in terms of the communication or the reassurance for as to how the claim is progressing. So what I mean by that, I had a car written off the very first flood on that Friday night, and just through good luck rather than good management, I had an awesome insurance broker, Mark Mallard, out at Cream Insurance, and Star was the insurer, and it was all dealt with really quickly. Phone call in the morning, after the incident, saying, pretty much 99.9% chance you're going to be covered. And, here's the process. The process was dealt with super quickly. Within 3 days, it was all paid out. And now it was a triviality compared to, what a lot of people out there are suffering. But I raise it because it's a great anecdote to show, how a great broker can make such a big difference. If I'd been with one of the other companies, I think that, I saw a guy in Hugo's this morning. A friend of mine was saying that his claim's just been approved now when it should have been an open shut case for a similar incident involving a vehicle. And I just thought, man, if I had to go through 3 weeks of anxiety over that, my experience over the last 3 weeks would have been somewhat different. And if you extrapolate that out to, your family home worth millions of dollars, or you hope is still worth millions of dollars, and you're getting, gyp from your insurer and anxiety around a lack of communication as to what's happening in terms of the process, how certain your claim is to be improved, I imagine that would be an incredibly anxiety-inducing state of mind to be in. So I'm just going to go through with you, just from a very high level, kind of basic, almost sort of, because we're not insurance specialists as such. We would never give specific tailored advice as to, for example, how to deal with a claim that's been declined, or a claim that I would say is higher risk. We would definitely refer you to Shine or Chris Patterson, or someone who does that as their bread and butter. So we're more looking to give advice as to how, from an emotional point of view and an initial process point of view, that you can actually determine the first steps when you're thinking about making a claim. So I've just got some notes here. I don't usually like having notes, but it is a process as opposed to my normal, word soup. So, first thing is all this might not apply now, but I hope you've got a really good broker or brokerage. If you do, you're going to be best placed to, receive good advice and be led, and it takes a lot of this process out of the equation. A lot of you won't, or you'll have, dare I say it, a lot bigger insurers or insurance brokerages that are likely to handle matters at scale, and following a process, and there'll be no particular skill or acumen on, depending on the person you get, and that could induce a lot more anxiety. So the first thing you want to do is, it's actually easier for me to speak anecdotally in terms of real life situations I've dealt with. So I'm a trustee for a trust for overseas client that owns a batch in Whangamata. And she came to me and said, we've had water ingress through, looks like, some door latches and windowsills, and the carpet's ruined, and potentially the flooring underneath the carpet's ruined as well. So the first thing that we did was we got a licensed builder out to actually assess what they thought to be the causes of the water ingress, and he determined that it was more likely, or it could be classed as wear and tear, and he would have to, if pushed, he would have to accept that it was natural wear and tear as over time, as opposed to the cyclone causing that water to burst through, which would of course reduce the likelihood of the claim succeeding at least in full. We then went to the insurer, who then actually told us to get that licensed builder. So we were ahead of the game on that. And what actually transpired was that once the builder had made the recommendation to our client, and once he suggested some cheap hacks in terms of some cheap dehumidifiers, ripping the relatively cheap carpet up, bearing in mind it was a batch and not a family home, he advised our client that it wasn't worth pursuing the insurance claim. Quantum was relatively small, and I think reading between the lines, he was inferring that they may have had some issues, even though the insurer did actually tell me that there wasn't going to be, that there would be cover for the consequential damage or loss, even if the water had got through fixtures and fittings which were deemed to be deteriorated due to wear and tear over time. So I know that's a mouthful to take in, but so I'll restate it because it's important. Even if the ingress was caused by something which was attributable to the lack of maintenance on behalf of our client, it would be likely that the majority of the quantum of the claim would still be covered. So look, it is case by case. It is difficult to look into the crystal ball and foresee how an insurer is going to react. But the first thing you want to do is to actually make your own layperson's assessment of what you think the potential quantum of the damages, and then the likelihood of the claim fitting in that sort of middle band of not low hanging fruit, so likely to be approved, likely not having any kind of complex or risky factors that you may think this could be intuitively something an insurer would decline a claim for. And if it's in that middle band and it's not too complicated, I think you can make the assessment, to go and get the builder and make your own assessment as to whether it's not going through. Because you've got to bear in mind as well, dealing with an insurer and dealing with a claim is stressful. And in and of itself, there's an opportunity cost to the time and energy you're putting into dealing with it, and the anxiety of not knowing whether or not they're going to pay out. So that's if you're lucky, if the quantum's pretty small. If the quantum is a lot higher, like in case of total loss or significant damage in the hundreds of thousands or more, or dare I say it, even 50, 70K, then you're in a position where you make your own intuitive assessment and you figure out, okay, the quantum's worth, I have to make a claim. Then you're saying to yourself, okay, are there any aspects intuitively from a layperson's perspective I think could cause my claim to be declined? You got the wrong policy in place. You have, or not quite the right policy. You haven't told the client, you haven't told the insurer that maybe it was family home, then you've rented it out. That could be obviously a decent issue. Then and other material changes that you've done to the structure that could, and you haven't notified. Like I've already touched on, fair wear and tear, those sort of things. If you have any doubt at all, you should go and get, and there is a high quantum, you should go and get a advice from a specialist insurance lawyer. And you should. It's really expensive to be cheap when you're faced in a position when you have an unknown amount of quantum of loss potentially. Well, you would in this case, and you're trying to save a couple of grand by not getting specialist advice, because everything you do from the minute you actually engage with the insurer will either be positive or negative for you in terms of the success of the claim. So if there's any slightly janky elements to your claim, you should have a specialist lawyer, giving you advice in the first place as to everything you do and say from the minute you begin your claim. It's just good common sense. Yet I know of countless people who have more than enough money to actually take that step, but they're trying to scrimp and save and not actually engage someone to help them when they know full well that there is a risk their claim, it may either be declined or not fully, the full claim not approved. If you do get advice from a specialist lawyer and they start to advise you as to steps you need to take, it sounds really straightforward and common sense, but listen to them, because they're dealing with insurers day in, day out, 8, 10, 12 hours a day. There's not that many situations that haven't come up before. So that it's right within the bandwidth of situations they're dealing with every day. Even if it's not what you want to hear, it will be the right advice. If they're a good, competent lawyer with a reputation for dealing with these things all the time, they're going to know a lot more than you. So it might not be what you want to hear in terms of intuitively you wanted to go about it, but take it from me, you've just got to listen to that advice. And a lot of people don't, because they don't want to deal with something which looks like unideal or not optimum in terms of how they wanted things to go. But as we know, like, things often don't go the way we want things to go. They go the way they actually go. And being able to accept that reality, see the wood from the trees, and not live in that delusion is just a really important part of getting on and making good binary decisions in life. So you need to listen to these people. Once you've engaged them and paid them, you need to listen to them and proceed on that basis. Okay, what else have we got? Oh yeah, so that's the last thing. I didn't want to keep this too long. So when you're dealing with potentially some of the bigger insurance brokerages, and you have a claim in place, and you've decided that there's nothing that you know of intuitively that fits outside of the scope of what should be a successful claim, try not to get anxious over the irregular and relatively unreassuring communication, because there are so many claims out there right now, and these people are run off their feet. And if you get anxious because you haven't had a clear yes or no, or because the communication is a little bit janky, then in the end of the day, you just got to accept you're a number. And if you don't hear anything bad, then there's nothing actually to worry about. If there's nothing intuitively that you think may actually be an issue in terms of the claim succeeding, then you just need to, I know it sounds really hard and it's easy to say rather than do, once when you're in that position and it's your family's home and you've been wading through water and you're living back at your parents' place. You never thought you'd live with your parents again, and your kids can't get to school and all that horrible stuff. But ultimately, if you're not hearing anything and there's nothing intuitively wrong with the claim in terms of you were insured and the policy should respond to something like this because it covers this type of event, then you just have to stop being neurotic about it. You need to just work on doing stuff for yourself, exercise, eating good, all that stuff, and getting on with your work and looking after your children and all that, because it will be seen out. It's they're not going to start declining claims left, right, and centre that sit in that middle bandwidth of claims that on principle have nothing actually wrong with them. And the last little tip I'll give you is when you're dealing with these people, as we have been reasonably regularly, even though we're not insurance lawyers, we've been dealing with claims and insurers, and I'm a trustee for various trusts, etc. Try and be nice to them, because as much as it might be frustrating that they are not maybe skilled enough to reassure you, or that they don't really appear to care enough about what is for you, a black swan event in your life. If you annoy them or piss them off, that they're in an office just like everybody else. They look at each other when they get off the phone. They go, well, that guy or that woman was a real jerk, and I don't, particularly feel like really pushing that through and helping them. It'll go to the bottom of the pile. Be nice. Try and be as empathetic towards their position as you can, because they're under the pump as well. And you bet your bottom dollar, if you're someone who sends everything through, photos, etc., that they're asking for on time, reply to them quickly, be patient in terms of having to wait, all of that, that will help your claim more than any other legal, sort of hack advice we can give you in terms of how to deal with an insurance claim. Like, be super nice. All the, general good best principles in terms of how you deal with other humans apply. And if you do all that and keep a cool, calm head, the chances are that eventually you're going to come out the other side of this, and you'll come out a lot better than people who are frantic, turn nasty, get anxious, and let this event, which is already a really, stressful, anxiety-inducing event, that event can actually become so much more apocalyptic in your mind, because you've just catastrophized the absolute worst case scenario. Like, we're not going to get, going to lose our house. We're never going to, be a happy family again because of this event, because everyone's so traumatized. It's like, yeah, it sucks, but at the end of the day, you just have to try and apply this approach as best as you can. And that even if it is still shit, which it still is and it still could be, then you haven't actually gained anything by going to that absolute worst case scenario and catastrophizing it, because it just never ends well. All right. Thank you very much for tuning in, and, slightly dour topic, but I think it needed to be done. And I hope everyone is safe and okay out there. And if anyone ever wants to give me a call, or anyone here a call, and have a chat about what you're going through, even if it's just to vent a little bit, or just have a yarn with me or any of the team here. Just call us on our mobile or send me a messenger message. And I already talked to half a dozen people last week, and I like to think we added a little bit of value, and also I enjoyed it as well, because being able to help out in shitty situations is actually it makes you feel good inside. So anyone out there that's really struggling, maybe try and look beyond yourself as well, because there are plenty of you out there that have it really tough at the moment, and there's some solidarity and bonding that can be come out of these places. And weirdly, you can actually it can elicit some quite beautiful things amongst us humans. Cheers. Try and have a good Monday. Keep your chins up.